The thermometer climbs past 46 degrees Celsius. Metal burns to the touch. Breath feels like inhaling fire. In the modern world, such temperatures trigger emergency protocols, overwhelm power grids, and claim lives by the thousands. Air conditioning becomes the thin membrane between existence and collapse. Yet 4,000 years ago, across the same scorched latitudes, millions of people built cities, raised children, cultivated grain, and constructed monuments that still stand. They possessed no electricity, no refrigeration, no climate-controlled shelters. The heat was identical, the survival rate was not. This is not a story of endurance through suffering. It is a study of civilizations that understood something we have forgotten. Extreme heat is not an obstacle to be overcome through power, but a force to be absorbed through design, discipline, and collective surrender to environmental truth. The builders of ancient hot climate civilizations did not fight temperature. They negotiated with it. Every wall, every street orientation, every choice of material represented accumulated thermal knowledge transmitted across generations. This was not intuition. It was engineering refined through centuries of lethal feedback. In Mesopotamia, the dominant building material was mud brick, a substance modern observers might dismiss as primitive. The dismissal reveals ignorance. Mud brick possesses thermal mass properties that outperform many contemporary materials. Thick walls of compressed earth absorb heat during the day at a rate slow enough to delay interior warming until evening. By night, when desert temperatures plummet, the stored heat radiates outward while cool air floods interior spaces. The cycle reverses at dawn. Inhabitants experienced perpetual thermal lag, always occupying spaces that reflected the temperature of 6 to 8 hours prior. This was not accident. Wall thickness was calibrated to local temperature oscillation patterns. The Indus Valley civilization deployed related principles with different materials. Fired brick, more durable than mud construction, formed the bones of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. Streets followed precise orientations that channeled prevailing winds through urban corridors. Buildings incorporated central courtyards, not as aesthetic choices, but as thermal engines. Hot air rising from sunstruck courtyard floors created convective currents that pulled cooler air through shaded ground-level rooms. The courtyard functioned as a pump requiring no energy input beyond solar radiation itself. Egyptian architects understood stone. The massive limestone and granite blocks of temples and tombs were not merely displays of power. Stone's extraordinary thermal inertia created interior environments almost disconnected from exterior conditions. Underground chambers maintained stable temperatures year-round. The living built thick-walled houses. The dead were housed in thermal vaults designed for eternity. Even modest dwellings featured small windows positioned high on walls, admitting light while minimizing direct solar gain. Rooftops served as sleeping platforms, where families escaped residual interior heat under the radiative cooling of clear desert skies. The Maya of the Yucatan Peninsula faced humid heat rather than arid extremes, demanding different architectural responses. Corbelled stone vaults and thick limestone walls provided mass-based cooling, but the absence of diurnal temperature swings limited passive thermal cycling. Mayan architecture compensated through elevation, raising ceremonial structures to capture breezes absent at ground level. Residential compounds featured thatched roofs over stone bases, combining thermal mass with ventilated overhead insulation. The thatch trapped air layers that buffered solar radiation while allowing humidity to escape. Across all these civilizations, one principle remained constant. Architecture worked with climate rather than against it. No building attempted to maintain conditions radically different from its environment. Interiors were cooler than exteriors, not cold. Comfort was defined relative to survivable ranges, not absolute ideals. This calibration of expectation was itself a form of thermal technology. Heat kills through dehydration. Every ancient hot climate civilization recognized water as the non-negotiable foundation of existence, but mere recognition was insufficient. Survival at civilizational scale required hydraulic engineering of extraordinary sophistication, systems that captured, stored, transported, and distributed water with minimal loss across months or years of drought. Mesopotamian civilization was synonymous with irrigation. The Tigris and Euphrates provided water, but not where or when it was needed. The rivers flooded in spring, months before the brutal summer that demanded irrigation. Babylonian and Assyrian engineers constructed canal networks spanning thousands of kilometers, moving water from river to field through systems requiring constant maintenance and coordinated labor. Reservoirs held spring floodwaters for summer release. Shadoofs and later water-lifting wheels raised water to elevations irrigation channels could not reach through gravity alone. The entire system demanded social organization capable of mobilizing labor, enforcing maintenance schedules, and allocating water rights during scarcity. The Indus Valley civilization achieved hydraulic sophistication unmatched in its era. Mohenjo-Daro featured the ancient world's most advanced urban water system. Wells appeared in nearly every residential block. The Great Bath, whatever its ritual purpose, demonstrated waterproofing and drainage engineering that would remain unsurpassed for millennia. Covered drains ran beneath streets, removing wastewater while preventing evaporative loss. Private homes featured bathing platforms with dedicated drains. This was not mere sanitation. Water in hot climates serves thermoregulatory functions. Bathing, even without soap, cools the body through evaporation. Universal access to bathing water was a public health measure expressed through infrastructure. Egyptian hydrology operated on annual cycles dictated by the Nile's flood patterns. The inundation deposited fertile silt while saturating fields that would otherwise become sterile hardpan. Farmers practiced basin irrigation, trapping floodwaters in diked fields and allowing slow percolation. Canals extended the river's reach into marginal land. Shadoofs, the pivoting counterweighted buckets that became emblematic of Egyptian agriculture, allowed irrigation to continue after floodwaters receded. Wells tapped shallow aquifers recharged by the annual flood. The entire agricultural system synchronized to a single hydrological event, requiring storage sufficient to bridge the months between inundations. Mayan water engineering responded to the Yucatan's peculiar geology. Porous limestone absorbed rainfall immediately, creating a landscape without surface rivers. The Maya constructed vast reservoirs lined with clay to prevent seepage. Aguadas, natural depressions modified to concentrate runoff, provided seasonal water sources. Choltuns, bottle-shaped underground cisterns carved into bedrock, stored rainwater collected from plastered catchment surfaces. The great city of Tikal maintained reservoirs sufficient to supply tens of thousands through the dry season. Control of these water sources concentrated power. Those who built and maintained the reservoirs commanded the labor of those who drank from them. Water infrastructure across these civilizations shared a common characteristic: redundancy. No single source, no single channel, no single reservoir defined the system. Multiple capture points, distributed storage, and alternative distribution routes ensured that failure in one component did not cascade into civilizational collapse. This redundancy demanded excess labor during construction, but provided insurance against the inevitable failures that heat-stress systems experience. Survival in extreme heat required collective action at scales impossible without coercive social organization. Irrigation canals did not maintain themselves. Reservoirs did not fill without coordinated labor. Harvests did not appear without agricultural calendars enforced across entire populations. Ancient hot climate civilizations were not democracies. They were hierarchical systems that subordinated individual choice to collective survival requirements. The labor demands of hydraulic agriculture created what historians have termed hydraulic civilization. Central authorities commanded the conscription of workers for canal digging, reservoir construction, and infrastructure maintenance. This was not slavery in all cases, but it was not voluntary labor either. The alternative to participation was exclusion from water access. In environments where water meant life, exclusion meant death. The state provided water, the population provided labor. This exchange, however coercive, functioned as a survival pact. Priesthoods in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Maya lowlands controlled calendrical knowledge essential to agricultural timing. Knowing when to plant, when to harvest, when the floods would arrive, when the dry season would break, this knowledge was power. Temples hoarded astronomical observations accumulated across centuries. Rulers derived legitimacy from association with these cosmic schedules. To defy the priest's calendar was to risk planting at the wrong time, irrigating when channels ran dry, harvesting before grain matured. Religious obedience and agricultural survival merged into a single behavioral template. Heat itself enforced social discipline. Outdoor labor during peak temperature hours was dangerous. Agricultural and construction work concentrated in early morning and late afternoon. Midday became a period of enforced inactivity. This was not leisure but metabolic necessity. Bodies that worked through the hottest hours failed. Civilizations that ignored circadian adaptation to extreme heat lost workers to heat stroke. The siesta, far from cultural indulgence, originated as thermal survival practice. Social stratification determined thermal exposure. Elites occupied the coolest structures, the deepest shade, the most water-rich locations. Laborers worked under direct sun. This inequality was lethal. The poor died of heat at higher rates than the wealthy. Yet even elites could not fully escape. Kings who led armies into summer campaigns died alongside their soldiers. The pharaoh who neglected temple maintenance faced the same drought as the peasant who neglected his field. Heat was a partial equalizer, lethal enough at extremes to threaten all ranks, differential enough in ordinary times to reinforce hierarchy. Perhaps the most significant difference between ancient heat survivors and modern heat victims lies not in technology but in expectation. Contemporary populations in developed nations have been conditioned by climate control to expect stable thermal environments. Deviation from this expectation triggers physiological stress amplified by psychological distress. Ancient populations harbored no such expectations. Bodies adapt to heat through acclimatization. Repeated exposure to high temperatures triggers increased sweat production, expanded blood volume, and modified cardiovascular responses. Full acclimatization requires 10 to 14 days of progressive heat exposure. Ancient populations underwent this process annually, their physiologies tuned to local thermal maximums. Modern populations, moving between air-conditioned homes, vehicles, and workplaces, never acclimatize. When cooling systems fail, they confront temperatures their bodies have never learned to process. Clothing in ancient hot climates reflected thermal priorities. Loose linen in Egypt permitted airflow while blocking direct radiation. Light-colored fabrics reflected solar energy. Minimal coverage reduced insulation. These were not fashion choices but survival technologies woven from plant fibers. Modern dress codes, inherited from temperate European traditions, often impose thermal burdens ancient populations would have recognized as suicidal. Activity levels modulated according to temperature. Ancient societies accepted that extreme heat reduced productive capacity. Expectations adjusted accordingly. Modern economies, calibrated to constant output regardless of condition, treat heat-induced productivity loss as failure rather than adaptation. Workers push to maintain performance despite thermal stress experience cascading system failures, their bodies and the infrastructure around them collapsing together. The contrast illuminates a fundamental difference in relationship to environment. Ancient civilizations position themselves within natural limits, adapting to constraints they could not alter. Modern civilization positions itself against those limits, deploying energy to maintain conditions that deny environmental reality. When energy fails, reality returns. The heat that ancient populations met with calibrated expectation, modern populations meet with shock. Not all ancient civilizations survived their thermal challenges. Across the hot latitudes, abandoned cities testify to failed adaptation. The Akkadian Empire collapsed during a multi-century drought. Maya cities emptied during the Terminal Classic period. Their reservoirs dry, their populations dispersed. The Indus Valley civilization declined as river systems shifted and monsoons weakened. Heat and its companion, water scarcity, claimed civilizations as surely as they preserved others. These collapses offer no reassurance. They demonstrate that adaptation has limits. Civilizations survived extreme heat only within specific hydrological and climatic parameters. When those parameters shifted beyond adaptive range, collapse followed, regardless of architectural sophistication or social organization. The ruins stand as warnings. Survival is not permanent. The systems that sustained life for centuries require conditions that themselves are not guaranteed. Modern civilization now tests the upper boundaries of those parameters. Temperatures are rising beyond historical ranges. Water systems face stresses unprecedented in human experience. The technologies that buffer contemporary populations from thermal reality depend on energy systems that themselves contribute to the changes making buffering necessary. There is no simple lesson here. The ancient survivors cannot teach modern populations how to live through what is coming. They can only demonstrate what survival required when heat was an inescapable condition of existence. Architecture that worked with climate, water systems built for redundancy, social organization capable of collective sacrifice, and expectations calibrated to environmental truth rather than technological fantasy. The heat remains what it has always been. What has changed is the nature of human vulnerability to it.